Welcome to the 707 Living podcast, where I'll be exploring what life is like in Sonoma County through community involvement and lifestyle. I'm your host, Heather Lenihan, mother, wife, and real estate advisor at Live Explore Real Estate and Lifestyle here in Petaluma. Welcome to the 707 Living podcast. It's the first one, and I am beyond delighted actually, to be joined by two women from the Blue Zones Project Petaluma, Nichole Warwick, who is the executive director, and Jennifer Remmers-Wright. Did I say that right?
You did.
Organization and wellbeing lead. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining and listening in. Do you want to start off with telling us a wee bit about yourselves and kind of how you joined the Blue Zones Project in Petaluma?
Yeah. I was going to say, first. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're so happy to be here. This is wonderful. This is your first podcast of the series. This is our first podcast representing Blue Zones. So
Oh, cool.
It's a good time for firsts.
Very cool. Great.
Yeah. And so, I came to learn about Blue Zones about a decade ago, which has really inspired me to kind of live into the principles and values of the original research from those 5 blue zones around the world. I was recovering from breast cancer, and I was doing a deep dive in a lot of research around health and well-being and what all the different variables would be for someone to consider when they're healing from something that I was. And a friend of mine had given me the Blue Zones book, and it was the first thing that I had read that had actually woven together all of the research in a really powerful way for me. So I had done a deep dive in those social determinants of health, right? Strong relationships, connectivity, the power of family, how important it is to have a strong sense of purpose and faith. But then also the nutrition pieces and what did my body need to be able to heal from what I had gone through, but also to live optimally. And then I didn't have the ability to kind of bounce back into the gym or do the same level of high intensity physical activity, but I could move naturally in the world. I could garden. I could do more walking. I could have that easy movement that was part of what was important for me to be able to heal. And the Blue Zones book was the first thing that I had encountered that kind of wove all those different pieces together in a really powerful way that felt doable. And so I started living into those principles more and teaching them to my sons, who were 13 and 16 at the time that I had read the book. And so we were building this ecosystem, if you will, of health and well-being in our family. And it was great. I'm here. It was great. My children are healthy and vibrant also. And the challenge with it was that sometimes going back out into the world, like when my kids would go to school or they would go to their sporting events, the healthier choice and options weren't readily available. And they were still choosing to default to those less healthy options. And so when I saw that Blue Zones had these community transformations where they were going into communities and helping to address health and well-being from a systems level perspective, so that in one's environment, if they're making that choice for themselves, it's reinforced in the environment and the community that they're living in. We're really here to help build a vibrant, healthy community where that healthy choice is easier to access than the unhealthy choice. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, this is it. This is a beautiful opportunity to be able to pull all these things together in a really meaningful way at scale that could influence population health. So when I learned about the project happening here in Petaluma, I was really excited, because I had worked in environmental health for many years, working with Daily Acts and the Leadership Institute. And so this was just another way to expand on some of that work and weave together a lot of people already in our community doing good work to enhance and support it and prioritize it around health and well-being. So for me, I was just delighted to know that the project was coming here, and I feel extraordinarily blessed to be able to lead it and to be in partnership with such wonderful people like Jennifer.
Yeah. It's a really, just thinking about, look, the Blue Zones, the areas that were designated as blue zones based on, the centenarians and the lifestyle and, all of that. I think that the fact that we have the opportunity here in Petaluma to, locally to create that healthy lifestyle that, there is just, the health, the well-being, the kind of practices, to have some sort of longevity, is, I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. It's great to have that bit of background about you. And then also to see and know your, what you're wanting to bring to the project.
Yeah.
In the community, which is great.
It's personal in a lot of ways.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel the privilege of my survivorship, and I get to be alive in the world now. And with that, I get to influence and guide systems to become healthier, to ensure health and well-being for my family, my children. I have grandchildren now, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right? My friends, students who I have taught, my colleagues, just to know that they're going to be living in an environment that's really prime for their health and well-being is everything. It's so gratifying to get to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Tell us about you, Jennifer.
Oh my goodness. I know. I should have gone first, right? I have such a hard time following. So the way that I kind of came to Blue Zones was also sort of a long story. I originally, back in the very early days, I was much more of a literature and theater person. I was very much so a part of my community that kind of went out into other groups or stayed together through art or enacting or theater arts out in the world. And then I ended up kind of healing all of my friends out of the back of my house. Everybody kind of called me Dr. Jen, and I was always making teas and remedies and things like that. So I decided to go back to school and work on basically medicine, and I got into nutrition. So I became a dietitian at Loma Linda. That was actually one of the best schools in the area where I was at. So kind of funneled right into medicine through food. And that was sort of my approach for the entire piece of it. And then I got to learn about the Blue Zones because Loma Linda is our only Blue Zone in North America. And they're very, very proud of that fact. And they are an amazing community, the Seventh-day Adventist community, which I am not personally a part of, but being just held and brought into that community is amazing. They're very sweet. They're very family oriented. They will hold you and accept you. And they're always doing things together. I started a school garden program when I was there. I was helping feed the student body. I was involved in the churches and teaching at the local community gym. And so I was just sort of always out doing things. When I was there, same thing, I started kind of working with some of the local pediatricians, and we started an after-school garden project with some master gardeners and the city. And we just being able to see that momentum of people coming together around a general idea of bringing kids in and holding them and teaching about food and their environment and all of those things. It's really inspiring. And you just feel a part of it every day. And then I think years later, I went back and I got my master's degree also at Loma Linda through public health and health education and wellness coaching, and kind of realizing what I had grown up with my own grandparents and how they were always very much so a part of their church. I was always delivering food with them. I was always involved. My grandpa was with the Lions Club. My grandmother was always playing bridge with the group. We were always mending things. We were working at the local community store and making sure that we donated clothes if we needed to, or going to food drives. And again, my grandparents lived well into their 90s. My grandmother was a month short of her 99th birthday. My grandfather was only a couple of years before that when he passed. And just very vibrant, amazing individuals. And I got to see that model at play, all of the things I learned about at school and that I kind of naturally did because that's what I learned with my family. It works, right? You get to see people that are part of communities of belonging and how it keeps them going and how they're engaged and thriving. So, my years of work that followed from nutrition, I've always worked as a nutrition director or helping with grant work. I've largely been in the Indigenous community for the last 15 years. And I came to Northern California about 12, 13 years ago and had been in Petaluma almost all of that time. I got to raise my daughter here. So I got to, again, sort of see a small town community, but because my grandparents both came from Nebraska and a big farming community, I got to have that like farming aspect to raising a child and seeing it, and then also seeing how important community was for her and having that sense of belonging for her. And I think being able to come back and see this community from a different angle and being able to do that same thing of like, there's all these things that we've seen work and there's a lot of it here and we just get to help piece it together and bring people back in. And that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. It's the piece of like working with your grandparents in the community, like when you watch the Blue Zone documentaries and they talk a lot about the community and working with your hands, I feel like that's a huge thing.
100%.
You know, which, like, that there's that kind of mind-body connection, but, the feeling of, like the feeling of almost like a pride, of being able to do things, make things, and create. And yeah, it's fascinating actually, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about the lower risks of dementia, and that's working with the hands and the creating and the constantly like your mind being busy and,
the sense of curiosity and wonder.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for our elders to have an important role in community still, to not be marginalized or housed outside of where the community is, to still have opportunities to be of service. There's so much wisdom to share forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
And so that being said, how do you feel like that kind of community, comes into that community spirit that we have in Petaluma? How do you feel like that comes, like that comes into play in Petaluma as far as like, implementing the project or the Blue Zones here?
Gosh, it's such a great question. I mean, that's the thing that stands out most, I think, about Petaluma, and that's what the national team observed in some of their early assessments, is that strong sense of community spirit and pride and engagement. We have a really engaged community. I think that right there is why we're here, because is particularly the healthcare district, Healthy Petaluma District and Foundation, has this strong sense of community spirit and a desire for this to be a very healthy, thriving community. And so they're the ones that solicited the Blue Zones to come in and do the initial assessment.
Yeah.
And they're our primary sponsor. So they're really like our community champions in a way. They're the ones who saw the opportunity for us to even enhance more here in Petaluma and build a stronger fabric of health and community connectedness, especially post-pandemic, that was really needed. And so that strong community spirit, I think, is what brought us here. It's also what sustains us.
Yeah.
So it's not just the healthcare district. It's also the city of Petaluma and the hospital who sponsor us in support of the work. And then we're in partnership. At the heart of the way that we do this work, it's community transformation. It's about engaging kind of across all sectors of the community, all the people. And we have been welcomed and received with such amazing grace and openness and willingness to be able to come in and help work in partnership with the community to lead these health initiatives, to reinforce the work that we're doing in building community with the policy that sustains it beyond the scope that we're here. And so it's very inspiring to be one called in to such a community to do this work, and then to work alongside such extraordinary people doing such amazing things. We couldn't ask for a better community to work in.
That's nice.
Yeah.
What kind of initiatives, like healthy initiatives, are, like, I know that there's the Petaluma City School Nutrition Advisory Committee, which is pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
I think that it really does start from, the kind of the opposite, where it's the trickle down effect, right? So always start from the top and rolls down. But I also think that when it comes to education around food and nutrition, I think that it kind of starts from the bottom up, because you're teaching kids how to, to eat well and teaching them about food and different kinds of food and everything, like that's going to be something like that strong foundation is going to be something that will benefit them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And I think that gets into exactly what you're talking about with community spirit, that the community wants to see this work done, right? You have a lot of passionate parents that are showing up to those meetings. You have a passionate administration that is like, okay, we see, we hear you, and we want to make a change. And I think a lot of people understand that when you model those behaviors with your children, then they grow up with that, right? They grow up with a community where the adults around them are engaging in that, where they see what's available and they understand that where their food's coming from, right? And that just becomes normal. It becomes normal. And that's so important, because otherwise, what are you growing up with? You're growing up with a sense of like, I don't know where my food comes from. I don't know. I just eat what's ever in front of me. And then it's just, I go. So, but we're a farming community, right? Like we're an ag community. This is like our food is all around us. We have artisan makers. And then we have very passionate parents that are like, no, let's connect those two. So.
Yeah, I mean, and then, you know, when you think about that, like where you are, we're teaching our kids, you know, how to eat well, and again, food, nutrition. But if you didn't have that growing up, then you have to kind of reverse a lot of how your life has been, you know, like in regards to food and how you've eaten. You know, and I think that it's harder, you know, the older you get to try and, you know, implement new ways of health and taking care of yourself, you know, to where if you're brought up like that, then it's a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully anyways.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. Well, I think like a lot of the models that we see around health and well-being put a lot of emphasis on the individual. You know, they're very like person-centered. Right. And then therein can be a rub. It's a challenge. We see when people are trying to make behavior changes individually, it's a little bit more challenging to like sustain them over the long run. Sometimes a really motivated person can lean in and make those changes for themselves. But if it's not reinforced by either your family or your circles of friends or your colleagues, or you have some sort of like environment that wraps you up and says, I totally see you trying to become healthier, and we do too. We're going to support you, and we're going to do it with you, and we're going to build this together. That's the thing that ensures success long term. I think that's, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves individually.
Oh, yeah.
Like to be able to hold it all and do it all and be it all. But really, there's grace and ease when we're in community and we have that wraparound support. So a lot of our programs are designed to build community, to support us in the health changes that we're dedicated to making for ourselves. Because, you know, health and well-being, it does start with us. We do have to have that commitment to ourselves. And usually when we get to a place where we feel really shored up, it ripples out, right? Like, and now my children, and now my partner, and what can I do in my community? And how can I help lean into our schools and make the school food better for our community's children? Because then we start to see the value of it in that collective whole. And we know that when we lean in that way, that's it reinforces us. It makes it easier for us too.
Yeah, to know, well, that you're not alone, you know,
Absolutely.
and also have that vulnerability to also, you know, reach out for help or you know, to share experiences or feelings or, you know, all of that, you know. Yeah.
Change is not easy.
No.
It takes work and dedication and effort, and you have to show up to it
every day
and again.
Yeah.
Right? With love and compassion and forgiveness and all the things that we have to bring for ourselves in the daily living. But that's, I mean, it's also really beautiful if you think about it.
And so what's your thoughts then on like with the Blue Zones for Petaluma, like I know that, you know, I believe anyways, and tell me if I'm wrong, that the goals, you know, it is making a healthier community, you know, healthier lifestyle choices, overall health and well-being and longevity. And so what are like the markers for knowing that Blue Zones is making a difference in Petaluma?
Well, such a good question.
Oh, data. Yeah. I get all the data questions. I do. And I do think that we have these kind of 3 pillars that we work inside, right? We have our people, our places, and our policy that kind of make up the whole of the work that we do here. And I think that reflecting on a little bit of what you're talking about, of like the people that you're surrounded by, there's that old adage that you are kind of the sum of the 3 or 5 closest people that you know, right? And so if your community is changing and we're able to offer a tipping point of that many people being engaged in the community, that we want to have at least 15% of the community that's involved in this work, then you're more likely to know somebody else that's committed to the work, or that they themselves have pledged to doing a certain kind of thing with their lifestyle or changing the environment around them. And then when you get into the places, which is kind of my sector, you're talking about those 3rd places where we spend all of our time outside of the home. So you're talking about schools, you're talking about your work, you're talking about your grocery stores, or where you're getting food if you go out on a Friday night, and what choices do you have available in those places, right? Is it easy for you to be like, oh, well, I don't want to get a greasy hamburger. I'd like to get something light. I'd get, something that I feel good about myself, and I'm with community, and I'm also feeding my body. And then with policy, you've got kind of that lasting change, right? You have that commitment to community change long-term. And so I think when you look at those metrics, right, you have that tipping point. You have the people involved. You have the places that are engaged. You have the policy that kind of shores up and holds it there for sustainability. And so I think that's where you get into a lot of the metrics for that, what our long-term overarching goals are. But for data, like, how do you measure involvement? You get people to come out. You get them to show up at our events. You get them to go in a group with somebody else, or take a walk, or you find out how many of the grocery stores locally are engaged in this work and are agreeing to become approved. You see how many of the schools are able to change their menu, or you see work sites where people are offering downshift space for their employees, or giving them opportunity to connect to other groups. So it's all of these little pieces that are sort of built in, and that's how we create a tipping point in a community, because then suddenly you're surrounded by an environment that is conducive to making the healthy choice the easy choice. It's everywhere. Mm-hmm. You go to work and it's built into the environment there. Your kid is going to school. They have good choices there. You come home, and when you go to get food for dinner that night, the choices that are laid out and prominently displayed are easy, healthy choices. And suddenly your lifestyle has changed with only a little bit of effort, because the environment around you has changed. And I think that's kind of the beauty of that model. Mm-hmm. Because as a dietitian, I always like to say, like, find me a person that doesn't know that diet and exercise works, right? Like, we know, but life happens. Like, you go out into the world, you're like, oh my gosh, my kid's got soccer practice, and I've got to get them going there, and I've got to go run over here, and I've got to make sure I pick up the thing from the dry cleaners. And if you're having to grab something on the way back, and the only thing available to you is a strip mall with lots of fast food and unhealthy choices that are prominently displayed when you first walk in the grocery store, well, then what's going to be the first thing that you see and the first thing that you grab, right? So it's all of those little changes that we make. And then we can monitor data in other ways in the community. You can try and see how many accidents are happening with people that are trying to ride their bike from west to east, or how many people are walking or taking public transportation, or how many people, when you ask them if they volunteer, would say yes and feel like they feel really engaged with their community and have a sense of belonging. So there's all those other little pieces that you can measure too. So there's the framework of what we're doing, and then there's the other way we can make sure that we're not losing anything around the edges. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I would add on top of that too, because the question is really fascinating. How do you measure health?
Right.
And it looks so different for everybody, but we know from learning from the original Blue Zones communities what those core 9 principles, we call them the Power 9 principles, what those look like in communities. So we would come in, like what Jennifer was talking about, all these different areas that we would measure the impact over time. And then we also use the Gallup Wellbeing Index. All of the Blue Zones community transformation projects use that as our North Star of data to give us that direct feedback. Are we making an impact? Is the strategy sound? Is it working? We know that it does because it's been demonstrated in other Blue Zones communities, but that Gallup Wellbeing Index gives us the opportunity to measure it from a baseline, and then annually as we're engaging in the project, and then beyond the project. Once the community reaches certification, then we'll continue to work with the community over time to ensure that we're still, meeting that certification criteria as a Blue Zones community. And so I think it's really powerful, one, to have a program like this come into a community and help stimulate health and well-being, I think it's also rare to have one that is such an accountable model. So we measure in, I think, 11 or 12 different impact areas, the work that we're doing, including the Gallup. And we'll be able to share back to the community annually and that's also sort of this reinforcement piece, right? We also want to know we're doing well as a community.
Right.
If we're making the effort and we're doing the work, sometimes it helps to get that validation, that feedback. Like, yeah, we did it. We hit that threshold mark. Oh, we did it year 2 also. We expanded it. And by year 3, we've met the criteria to become certified as a Blue Zones community. That's really exciting for us to lean into.
And so this is the first year that we're in right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the kickoff that's coming up next month, April 14th, would that be officially like the official start, or is that something like, where does that fall in the first year?
I mean, sort of. I feel like we've finally like kind of cemented what our strategies are and kind of what we're going to do. So it's like a celebration of like, all right, we've gotten people together. We've heard what you said. We've looked at the data, and now let's do this. And like, let's tell people that we're here and what we plan on getting up to. And so I think it's because Petaluma is such an amazing, innovative place, but we definitely like to party. We like to come together and have a celebration. I think it's so important, right? I like, so we're in our first year and we're getting going with a bang. That's the way to do it.
Cool. Very cool. What else do you think that people that may not know about Blue Zones or may not know that there's a Blue Zones project in Petaluma, like what are the things that you would say to the community as far as how to get involved, or where to find out more information, or both?
Good. Yeah, I'm thinking all
the above.
Right? All the above. Yes. So we have the fortunate opportunity to be neighbors. So we're right next door to Live Explore. You can always come down to our office. We're at 8 4th Street in downtown Petaluma. Just come on in and visit us. You could visit our website, which is bluezonesprojectpetaluma.com. And on there, people can identify where different events are. So we have the kickoff event coming up. We're also going to be in the Butter and Egg Day Parade.
Cool.
The following weekend. We're still looking for community members who want to join us in our walking group in the parade. And all of those opportunities to sign up for activities are on the website. And as we continue to build out different programmatic elements and opportunities for engagement, those will also live on the website. This is interesting. This is really like our community-facing launch. It's kind of like, and we're ready.
Yeah,
I think
and we're here.
The community has been so excited about us coming in, and I think even for the healthcare district, they've been so excited because for years this has been in the works to bring us here. And so the community is really ready and excited for this. And so now we can finally say, and we're ready to mobilize together. So the first 9 months of the program really was what we call foundation and planning. It's a lot of research, a cross-sector research in 12 pillar areas here in the community to better understand what are the needs, what are the opportunities, what are the gaps. And I think that if I had one message to share with the community of Petaluma, it would be that this is our project. This project is only going to work as well as we step in and participate in it. From that place of like building collective impact. We work at a systems level. So we're working to help strategize and work with the community partners who are already here in the community doing good work to help enhance and amplify and elevate their work, to resource them in ways that they might have identified needs with, to be able to lean in and help people build community that then they can hold and sustain. I think that part of the brilliance of the Blue Zones model is that we have this amazing body of research from around the world, and we have this extraordinarily competent team at the national level who provide us layers of training and support in that Blue Zones model. But we hire locally. So everybody on our team is from this community.
Mm-hmm.
We're invested in this community. These are our circles. These are our families. These are our schools. These are our colleagues and friends and allies. And so we have a really different sense of connection to the work. And we're really here to build the community's capacity to do this work with us together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less of what Blue Zones is going to do for Petaluma and more of what is Petaluma going to do in partnership with Blue Zones that's going to ensure our health and well-being beyond us, not just for us, not just the people who are living today will benefit from this, but like you
Generations to come.
Generations to come.
Yeah.
If we're resourcing our young people with the skills and the environment that they need to be healthy and well, that's going to trickle down through the generations.
Mm-hmm.
That's a legacy of health and well-being that the community right now has an opportunity to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful.
What in the research, like, what were the things that you saw or that were seen that need kind of an awareness or, you know, a change in, you know, in the lifestyle in Petaluma?
Well, I think what I would start with is what we're doing really well. There are a lot of things we do really well here in Petaluma. We have great access to healthy food. We could enhance that to ensure that all people have access to healthy food, right? We know that we have beautiful parks and the River Park Foundation and Friends of the Petaluma River. And we've got city parks and we've got county parks. We have all these beautiful trail systems. We just need to get out and start moving more, right? We have great community organizations that are weaving people together, like Cool Petaluma and some of the faith-based organizations and Daily Acts. And we've got Relief. We've got people who are coming together to be of service. And we need more people to come in and participate because the pool of volunteerism right now, the people who show up regularly need more support. They need more reinforcement. They need to have more capacity to be able to step back out and rejuvenate and rest and step back in again so that we're building greater capacity for that long term. You know, we have a fair amount of work to do around health and nutrition in the schools. Our students and our educators and the administrators are really struggling coming back from COVID. They are some of the most hardworking people in our community, and they need a lot of support and reinforcement. They could receive more volunteerism. They could receive more community support from that grassroots level around the nutrition. We'd love to see a school garden at every school, right? We'd love to mobilize more opportunities for the community to come in and co-create what they want to be a part of, what community they want to grow old in, what community they want their children to grow up in. So there's, even though we have this pretty robust sense of health and vitality and well-being here in Petaluma, there are always areas where we can improve, right? Where we can build our collective immune response. There's so many amazing opportunities to step in. And we have this unique opportunity post-COVID. And it's a little challenging, you know, to come back in to being fully in social circumstances or in large groups of people, or to reintegrate back into working full-time in person after being, you know, in remote working and remote learning situations. So we're all kind of going through this little bit of learning and readjustment. I feel like sometimes I need my own like resocialization plan just to like go, okay, and I feel saturated and I'm going to rest and I'm going to step back in when I feel ready. And some of those self-care practices, when we live into them, they become collective care practices. And I think that collective care practice is where we could really lean in as a community. We could do a better job taking care of each other and being support systems, leaning in and helping our children learn some of those healthier stress management skills. Like, you know, sometimes you do need to get out on a trail and just run it out, or shake it out, or play it out, or dance it out. And it's the right time now, post-COVID, for us to be able to do this, come back out, reweave a really, really strong fabric of community that prioritizes health, that prioritizes being able to downshift and de-stress and live well together in community.
And relearn. You know, I mean, I think that there was so much that was lost and forgotten And I think that, you know, it's almost like a somewhat of a blank slate, you know, like we were, you know, to start over again, you know. And I think that, like you said, it's the right time, and, you know, and taking care of yourself. And like you were saying about the, you know, you get busy, you know, day to day with things for the kids or this for work, and, you know, like relearning how to take care of yourself, but then also, you know, see the importance of socialization and helping out the community.
Yeah.
You know, I think that a lot of people may not know where to go to volunteer, you know, and that would be, you know, because I think that everyone's, you know, sets it with the best intentions, you know, and like you say, when you go into the grocery store, the first thing you see, you know, if you're hungry or you're, you know, you're going to grab that, you know, having those choices. And so I think that when it comes to volunteering or being a part of the community, you know, having something where it is almost like readily available of, okay, I want to do this, where do I go? Oh, you know, there's a specific website or something where it makes it easy for someone to sign up and help it.
That's great. You just identified one of our goals
and
strategies.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw that too. It is hard. It's hard. You know, it's easier when you have clear pathways. It reinforces us and it helps us stay in it when it's easy. Yeah.
Well, and then, I mean, having that, like I said, the easy way to go or the website, you know, it's, should have totally lost my train of thought.
They're like birds, they fly back. It's all good.
Moving on. Yeah, you know, for myself, I wanted to volunteer and try to, you know, where would I volunteer? What would I do? Where do I go? How do I start? You know, and then if it's not something that I think is easy to find, you know, yeah, you can take a wee bit of time to do the research, see where it is you want to volunteer your time. But again, like if it's no there, then the momentum gets lost.
The momentum gets
you
lost. Yeah. And the thing that inspires us to want to step in and be of service usually is where our passions are. Where do you feel passionate? Where does your passions and your gifts come together? It usually kind of speaks to something very purposeful, something very personal.
And that sense of purpose, like that sense of fulfillment.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's what fills your cup.
Yes,
you know,
exactly. One of the first series of projects offerings that we'll be doing with the community is facilitating purpose workshops. So we can bring people together who are ready, but maybe also are like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I know what I like to do. I know what I'm good at doing, but what does that mean in community? And so we want to be able to help people identify where they feel that sense of purpose and also where they can put that purpose into action. Because having purpose that's unfulfilled is really frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Totally. Manifest into something else.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And then having that sense of purpose, or that, like, you know, finding something that you enjoy doing that would be, you know, there's longevity behind it. Not necessarily like the longevity in life, but longevity in the fact that you could do it. You do it for a while.
You can do it for a while.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, well, I mean, we've talked about this, right? That, like, obviously you can always come into our office and we're trying to connect everybody out in the community, but finding some place for that to live, right? That's why it's one of our goals. We want to have some place it is easy for people to access and some place that they can plug into their sense of purpose and find a place to express that or help or go out and start something. And so that's what we'll be looking for. We'll be looking for some place for that to live long term, because we can't hold all the things. All we can do is shore up the good work, and we can make sure everybody's connected to where they need to go. But absolutely, it's definitely a goal, because people want it, right? This is what the community needs. So that's where that beautiful place where just like the thing that you want and data actually meet. Isn't that so great when it actually reinforces it? Like, people told us that's what they wanted, and look, we're hearing it and we're seeing it everywhere we go and who we talk to, and it's showed up in what we're observing and what we're hearing. So,
well, this has been great.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to come on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us. It's really wonderful. It's lovely to meet you too.
Yeah, lovely to meet you as well.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice to even like in another, like a few months down the line or 6 months to like chat again.
Sure. Oh, we like that.
You know? because I'm sure that as things, after the kickoff and as things progress, like things will, change and be more information and, it'd just be cool to in some sort of way, like reflect on the progress as it's happening.
Yeah, definitely. And share more about where the opportunities are coming up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. They're at the kickoff. The community will have an opportunity to learn more about the project, the blueprint that we've been working on that identifies our goals and our objectives and some of the strategies in play. And the community can select. They could like really see like this thing that you're doing in the schools. I really want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I can help. Or this work that you're doing to build communities of belonging. I actually have this pod of people and we want support or we want to help grow. And people can identify where they want to be at in this project because there's so many different touch points that contribute to healing. There's so many different pieces of that puzzle. And when you look at the whole thing, sometimes you're like, oh, that's a lot to take on. It's just one thing. You step into one thing first and you do that one thing and you build that practice and you build that just becomes part of who you are. And then when you're ready, you try the next one and you try the next one. And so at the kickoff, I think people will have an opportunity to come in and have some exposure to different activities, experiential and educational, to be able to see, well, what's resonating with me right now? And what's this one thing that I can step in that will be better for my health or better for my family's health? And we'll just start there together.
I love that. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're going to be there.
Yeah,
I look
me
forward
too.
to meeting your child.
My son.
Yeah.
So one last question. What do you live in Petaluma?
I did for 11 years. I'm just north now. So.
All right. What do you love about Sonoma County, Petaluma, or Sonoma County and/or?
For me, Sonoma County, well, in Petaluma especially, because I really have lived here for the majority of the time I've been in Northern California, is that it does really encapsulate that sort of like small town feel. Like it feels like you're going to run into people, everyone's very friendly. I have a lot of friends here and I can go out into the community and run into them, or there's always something to do. But also it's a city like of big thinkers. I feel like there's a lot of innovators here. I feel like you can have some really deep intellectual discussions. I mean, there's people that are involved in science and they're involved in the environment and they're involved in creative play. And so I feel like there's just always so much to do. And then we're just blessed to live in a really beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
So,
yeah, echoing
that
sentiment, definitely. I think the first thing I fell in love with in Sonoma County was the environment. There was some resonance in this space that just felt like this is home. And then truly, I think it was after the fires of 2020, I was living in West County and had to evacuate and was received by a family here in Petaluma. Didn't know us, took us in, the whole lot of us, including the dogs.
Oh, wow.
And provided a safe haven for us in a time of crisis. And it was really after we went through these series of environmental catastrophes that I started to understand the love, the dedication, that deep sense of community that exists here that makes us all want to stay here and be a part of this community. Like we're a community that really takes care of place. We take care of our environment. We take care of each other. And we step in big and bold ways and innovate as needed in response to these things in a way that I'm inspired every day.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's a blessing to be here.
It really is. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place. People are great. The community's great. Myself and my husband, my kids, we love it here. Yeah, it's great. So, all right. Well,
this is fantastic.
Yeah, this has been great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks to everyone for joining and listening in, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you for listening to the 707 Levin podcast. If you like what you hear, please like, rate, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time.